Good. I think that we can slowly start with our webinar. Welcome everybody to the second textile workshop from the Aligned project. It's a webinar which is about LCA implementation on the textile sector. Next slide, please. Yeah, we expect it to last about 1.5 hours and not more than that. Yeah, on the practical issues, my name is Patrick Reumerman. I will do the introduction of the project. After that, we will have one of our case studies, the Dr. Green LCA case study presented by BTG co-worker Bas Davidis. And then we have an interactive discussion where we would like to solicit your feedback on our recommendations, and that will be led and moderated mostly by our colleague Rachel van der Sluis. And yeah, we hope that gives some quite interesting results. And then after that, we will have a little bit of a wrap up, which is not too much, I think. So yeah, I wish you all a very nice webinar. I hope that we will all learn something. And yeah, let's see what happens. Huh? As mentioned earlier already, if you have any practical issues, any things, please use the chat. We monitor it, and especially also for practical issues, it's very suitable, and we will use it, and we will try to make it as comfortable as possible for everybody. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. We start with a general presentation of the Aligned project. It's an EU project which is about LCA sustainability in 5 industrial sectors. My name is Patrick Reumerman. I work for BTG. Next slide, please. And we are, here you see our office. We are an SME in the Netherlands. And what we do, we work on biomass for energy and materials. So we are very much versed and interested in the bio-based economy, in the bioeconomy, even more general. We are about 30 people. We combine consultancy project support with RTD, and we have our own laboratory. And we think that helps us to be close to the research, and it helps our researchers to be close to the market. Our expertise spans the entire value chain, from the biomass to the final products, and everything in between. And we have quite a lot of knowledge, we say ourselves, of gamma aspects like sustainability, value chain evaluations, LCA, of course. We have experience with the formation of consortia. We like to cooperate in European projects, and we are open to that. So if you have an idea, then come to us. We will always look at it very seriously. Next slide, please. Well, the Aligned project, I already told you that this is the framework in which we have this workshop. The reason for the Aligned project is an earlier study on biorefineries. There we did an investigation into the barriers for deployment of bio-based products. And it turned out that the finding and presenting evidence on sustainability was a key barrier seen by many stakeholders, because it's costly. Full LCAs are costly. LCAs are open to interpretation. There's no level playing field. Methods are sometimes sector specific. You will know the Higgs MSI in textiles with a confusing terminology. So there was some things. And because of that, we looked for partners, and we found an opportunity to work on this in the Aligned project. so that we could improve the environmental sustainability in these 5 industrial bio-based sectors. Next slide, please. And this is the aligned. We have here in the pictograms the 5 sectors. All these 5 sectors use biomass to a quite extensive extent. So construction, of course, lots of wood, woodworking, pulp and paper, textiles, that's why we're here. Textiles use a lot of bio-based materials and biochemicals. And our focus is the life cycle assessment of these in these 5 sectors. And next slide, please. Our goals are therefore to improve, to harmonize and align the LCA methodologies for the assessment of bio-based industries. We hope that our methodologies help to improve the environmental performance in these 5 sectors. And the third thing, we want to do this together with you, with our stakeholders. And we want to inform you, we want to involve you with workshops like this. And we hope that the methodological uptake of the methods that we're working on is being smoothed that way. Next slide, please. We do it with around 10, 12 partners. That is a combination of several universities. The coordinator is the University of Aalborg in Denmark. Antwerp is a part of it. The French INSA Institute and the Norwegian NTNU Institute work on there. There are 5 case study companies because we have 5 case studies worked out in our project. 1 company for 1 case study in one of the sectors. We have several research SMEs. BTG is one of them. Sustainable Innovations, where Russia works, is another one. And we have 1 sector organization for the textiles, Textile. Next slide, please. Then about our methods, what we try to do, we try to develop a scientific framework which connects the theory and methods which are prevalent and which are emerging in scientific literature. And we want to link it to the real world situation, so that we want to try out our methods in real case studies with actual companies so that we see what are the problems. It's based on best available science, selected and harmonized. That's what we try to do, of course. Very important point is that it's openly available. So we would like everybody to try and use it. And it should be applicable across these 5 sectors, which is, of course, in our name, that the use of biomass, the common use of biomass, the methods for that are aligned. Next slide, please. Then the approaches and methods and tools that we in Aligned have developed or further developed or used. They follow the ISO phases in the various in the LCA. The first one is in the life cycle inventory. That is a technology or a method called prospective LCA. And that is a method which is very usable for technologies which are not yet available in the market. That means, and what happens there is that because the situation, the time goes by, technologies improve, and that means that LCA background data also changes. For example, energy will be more and more of less and less carbon intensive in the future, we expect. And with prospective LCA, you have an opportunity to modify your background data so that you can make use of that. This is also especially interesting for the textile sector because the use phase is a very big part of the environmental impact of the products there. On the goal and scope and LCI, we have a method for the identification of market constraints. And of course, all our 5 sectors use biomass. Biomass is in many cases a constrained resource, and it's necessary to identify and work on these market constraints and see what influence that has on the life cycle inventory. Furthermore, very important for the bio-based sectors is, of course, the carbon accounting. The carbon accounting can be ignored, but we are further developing a method for time and space dependent carbon accounting to have our uptake and release taken into account, so that we have mass balanced carbon inventories. We have methods and characterization factors for the dynamic assessment of climate change and biodiversity impacts. That's especially for the LCIA. And with respect to the interpretation phase of LCAs, we have methods for uncertainty and sensitivity analysis in bio-based sectors. Also, we are looking at socioeconomic assessment. These methods are made in a way that they can be used easily, we hope at least. So we have often a tiered approach. That means that we have several tiers. We have an easy tier, which you can use quite easy, and a more complicated tier, tier 2, for example, where you put in a little bit more effort, but you can be a little bit more accurate, and a tier 3 where you can have the full Monty of the methods. It is especially clear, for example, in the prospective LCA. With the tier 1, you replace one database. Tier 2, you replace several databases. And tier 3, you create your own tailor-made database. So that's the idea. Next slide, please. Where can you find it? Please click, Rachel. Yeah, we want to have our methods open and usable by all. They can be found in Zenodo. There you find the methods themselves and also the descriptions and the tutorials. So we are at the moment in a process where we fine-tune these tutorials, but it is there and it is usable, and you are very much invited to use it. Please do the next slide. You are very welcome to try our methods, and you are also very welcome to tell us what you think about that. If you want to help us improve our tools, please provide feedback. You see here a QR code. In the slides that we will make available, you can click on the link there. It's a Microsoft form, so it is meant to be easy, low threshold, and as I said, we are very interested in your feedback. Next slide, please. Yeah, after we showed you the methods that we are developing in Aligned, and some of those methods, not all, but some of them have been tried in the Textile case. We have a case which is called Dr. Green, where together with industrial partner Utexbel, we are trying to recycle work clothing containing both polyester and cotton fiber. And we are interested in of course, in the environmental sustainability of that case, and also in how those new methods work there. Bas will tell more about that, Bas Davidis. Next slide, please. And for this workshop, this is actually the second workshop in a series. 2 years ago, we made a sector overview of the textile sector and the most important environmental impacts there. We reached out to you to gather feedback. We are still very happy about that. And this one is to present the results. And secondly, very much to gather input for our recommendations. So next slide, please. We thank you in advance for this, and we would like to invite you to get connected to the Aligned project. More and more results are coming in, so it's going to be interesting the rest of this year. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a very nice rest of the webinar.
Okay, then I think we give the floor to Bas.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, my name is Bas Davids. I work at PDG, and I will give you a short demonstration on how we have used the aligned methodology on a real-world case study on the textile sector. Yeah, so next slide, please. So the case study in short. So throughout the execution of the case study, there have been three case study partners involved. This includes us, BDG. We are responsible for the modeling of the case study and the further application testing of the aligned methodologies. I would say that we are well experienced here in conducting the life cycle assessments and have been doing so in numerous EU projects. Textile is our industry partner who develops and produces yarns and fabrics. Textile is a family business and is founded in 1929 in Belgium. Also, Textile, which is a competence center. They help steer the entire process and offer their expertise and also their research facilities, providing additional data. As mentioned before, and also like Patrick mentioned, we have focused our case study on the product called Dr. Green. This is a workwear fabric produced from used end-of-life hospital garments. And these hospital garments consist of both polyester and cotton. Yeah, next slide, please. So the outline of this presentation will show you the goal of the study, a short overview in more depth, the case study, also then the results of the base case. So this is the case where we did not have yet applied the aligned methodologies. Then I will show you the aligned tools that have been applied on the case study, and of course the results of applying the aligned framework, and then the lessons learned. So the goal of the study is actually twofold. First of all, we want to identify any environmental impact hotspots along this value chain, and this will be shared, of course, with Textile to improve the environmental footprint. And this is where also we are all here, is to apply the aligned methodology on the case study, and then these methodologies will be then evaluated on practical implementation, scientific outcomes, impact, and also the alignment of the methodologies. Yes, the case study. So here you can see an overview in the form of a flowchart. You can see the various steps in the Dr. Green value chain. So it starts with the collection of white hospital garments consisting of polyester and cotton with a ratio of 67 to 33%. And after the collection, the hard parts, which is mostly the buttons, and also the colored parts are removed. This is currently done manually. The fibers are then recovered by means of shredding and also carding. So part of the cotton fraction is reduced to dust during shredding, and the fibers are separated during carding and thereafter blended with either virgin materials or recycled PET and organic cotton. So we are talking about the first generation Dr. Green when we blend it with conventional cotton and virgin polyester, while the second generation Dr. Green uses recycled PET and organic cotton. So this is an important differentiation here. The carded fibers are then transported to the weaving mill of Textile, and the weaving process involves, of course, the interlacing of the warp and weft threads to create the fabric structure. This stage is somewhat energy intensive, with the weaving machines consuming significant amounts of energy and in the form of electricity. Following the weaving, the fabric undergoes finishing to enhance the appearance and performance. It also involves steps like washing, bleaching, and treating the fabric with resins. So overall, the manufacturing process, including the shredding, requires processing energy in the form of electricity and heat. And during the use phase, the Dr. Green garments are washed 50 times and require, therefore, electricity and water consumption, as well as detergent use. Textile, in this case, has performed the textile performance tests following an ISO standard 6330, from which data has been used in our inventory. Next slide. So these are the results. This is the distribution of the climate change impact in kilograms CO2 equivalent. So above you can see the results of the first generation Dr. Green, and below the second generation Dr. Green. And the functional unit here is one piece of Dr. Green clothing washed 50 times. We can see for the first generation Dr. Green, we see 47 kilograms CO2 equivalent on climate change impact, and for the second generation, this is slightly lower, 45.4 kilograms. If you look closer to the life cycle stages, the major contributors to the climate change impact here are electricity and heat, but mostly from the use phase. This is also well in line with the findings in the literature. Depending on the fibers that are used, it is often between the 65 and 85% that the contribution is to the use phase. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the tools that have been applied from the aligned framework are here listed. So we have used the prospective LCI background method, also the method called constraints to biomass availability, and the modeling of a market mix. We also used the data guide to set up an LCI. After that, we have also used the dynamic carbon accounting and the dynamic global warming potential framework, as well as the uncertainty. The file names I have provided here, those can be found back on the Zenodo inventory, so you can check it out later. So the background LCI, which includes the prospective LCI background, and also the foreground LCI, including the constraints to biomass and market mix, will be explained here in more detail. I'll do a deep dive in this. I will not go into detail with the data guide LCI. And the methodologies for dynamic global warming potential and uncertainty will be only briefly explained. Yeah, next. Yeah, okay. So, applying the foreground LCI framework. So, how does this actually work? Well, all the necessary, like I said before, all the necessary documents to apply the aligned foreground LCI framework can be found on the Zenodo repository. And the link is also provided here below. It contains, for instance, the methodology behind the modeling of biomass constraints, It includes example files, also and like the data set used for the market mix calculations, and it includes tutorials as well. You can give one click, and you can see the file names that are listed also in the repository. Yep. So yeah, how does it work? The foreground LCI is a framework for understanding the impact of increased demand for bio-based products on biomass supply. If you overlooking these effects on biomass competition can lead to incomplete and also inaccurate assessments, and the availability of specific feedstocks and biomass types might actually be limited. So in other words, they can be constrained, and this has consequences on what the induced impact is of producing more and more bio-based products. The problem of including constrained biomass in LCA can be approached using a consequential approach, and this is actually already documented in the literature. But the contribution of the aligned methodology here is on recommending which data and tools to use, and well, as a consequence, also increase the robustness of the results. To identify the constrained supply, Aligned makes use of a decision tree, which can be seen on the right, which is actually a simplified decision tree here. If we look at this decision tree, you can see that the first task is to understand whether the product is a main or determining product of a specific activity, or if it is a dependent byproduct. So a determining product is such that an increase in demand of this product increases the product volume of the activity. Usually, the main source of revenue for the product activity is the determining product, and has therefore a high market demand. But the increase in demand of constrained products, for which there is an established market, leads to a divergence of use and will induce production from marginal suppliers. And on the other hand, an increase in demand of dependent byproducts does not influence the production volume, and therefore dependent products are always constrained. Next slide, please. So the recommended approach in Aligned is to identify the constraints to supply of biomass. Is firstly to identify the co-product constraint. So as mentioned before, co-products are dependent products and are therefore always constrained. And preferably, you should make use of data on production costs, using interviews with product manufacturers, or using scenario data from the literature. And secondly, identify the production constraint. So in other words, can production increase, yes or no? So which regions, countries, or producers can expand their capacity to meet increasing demand, and can therefore also be included in the market mix. This can be established in two ways. You can define the size of a market using assumptions or information from producers. It can also be established through the use of time series data. And here you can use historical production data to understand which producers are expected to show an increasing production trend. An example is the data from Faustat. Next slide, please. So looking at the flowchart I have shown before, we have a couple of inputs for which we need to identify whether they are constrained or not. And we have identified that the collection of hospital garments is a constrained product. Can you click one time, please? Yeah. This is a constrained product. Can you click next? Yeah. That recycled PET is also a constrained product. And that both conventional and organic cotton should be included in the market mix. And I'll explain why in the next slide. So the hospital garments collected for their fiber content are regarded as dependent byproducts and do not influence the production volume of the activity. And dependent products are, well, inherently constrained. You do not produce hospital garments for the sole purpose of recycling them into new hospital garments. So currently there's no existing market for end-of-life hospital garments, and as such, if you follow the tree here, it will avoid current treatment activities and is therefore modeled as avoided waste treatment. Recycled PET is also a constrained source, but has an existing market with high market demand. This is actually due to various reasons that I found in the literature. For instance, the scalability of advanced recycled technologies, there's a consistent feedstock quality and availability, also the increased brand commitments to higher recycled content targets in PET bottles. So in practice, it's anticipated that buyers will have to shift to virgin PET, and therefore the marginal suppliers in this case is the supplier of virgin PET. For conventional and organic cotton, these are actually the main and determining products of, well, cotton farming. The increase in the demand for conventional and organic cotton will highly likely or very likely result in additional cotton plantations. So we need to assess and identify who the marginal suppliers here are here for conventional and organic cotton. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the market mix for conventional cotton is determined from the historical data on cotton lint from Faustat, of using Faustat data. The production quantity here is for the past 20 years and is collected on a global scale. From all producing countries, the production trend of the top 5 cotton lint producing countries was determined, which is shown here also in the table. And those producing countries that show a positive increment over these 20 years can be included in the market mix. So 0 or negative values cannot be considered because there's no growth. Looking at the table here below, Brazil and India show a positive increment and then are proportionally included in the market mix. Next slide, please. For organic cotton, unfortunately, Faustat does not distinguish between the cultivation of conventional and organic cotton. So to determine the market mix for organic cotton, I had to use the aggregated data and insights from Textile Exchange. Each year they report the production of certified organic cotton and include the data received from every producing country. So below you can see the estimated production values of the 4 biggest contributors to the global growth in 2020-2021. So we could only establish the production values for 2 consecutive years here. And the market mix is then calculated similarly to that of what I've shown you in the case of conventional cotton. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, the market mixes could not be accurately modeled due to the lack of eco-invent records regarding conventional and organic cotton in different geographical regions. So it would have actually required me to collect data on cultivation practices in the countries that are included in the market mix, but that was unfortunately too time consuming. For conventional cotton, I was able to use proxy. yeah, still aside from that, an increase in climate change impact was observed. And well, that actually reflects the consequences of increased pressure on resources, at least, well, partially, as I could not model the market mix accurately. Yeah.
Bas, I only want to say that time-wise, we should think about rounding up the case study.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then I will make it then quickly. The prospective life cycle assessment. Well, it's useful to assess the environmental performance of current and emerging technologies in the future. It incorporates expected changes in technologies and the environment at a given point in time. We use an open source Python-based model named Premise to generate a prospective version of the background inventory. Yeah. Next slide. So how does it work? The Align framework suggests 3 different levels or tiers. Tier 1, you can use a predetermined scenario and for a single database generation. In Tier 2, you have flexible scenarios where you can use multiple background databases. And in Tier 3, user-defined scenarios. Yeah, some coding skills are needed for Tier 1 and 2, but for Tier 3, you actually need some advanced coding skills. Next slide. Yeah, how does this work? Yeah, there's a short summary here for the steps you have to take, as well as the files and software that you will need on your PC. I will not go into detail then, but yeah, through step 1 and 2, you create a sort of environment on your computer, so that it does not interfere with your software packages. You will run some premise codes on the Jupyter notebook that is able to read or understand Python code, and a CSV file will then be created that includes then the transformed eco-invent background database based on the scenario that you have chosen. So here's a short snippet of the premise code that can be altered between tiers. Okay. I've used tier 1 and 2 here to the Dr. Green study, and with the following model scenarios, which is the SSP2 NDC. These are listed here. So shortly, the SSP2 NDC scenario is the middle of the road scenario, and this will follow a path in which social, economic, and technological trends do not shift markedly, and slowly decreasing fossil fuel dependency. The SSP5 based 2050 scenario is actually a world that emphasizes economic growth as the route to achieving societal goals, and that the energy system is then dominated by carbon-intensive resources. Here can we see a visualization of the scenario models regarding energy consumption and the type of energy mix. And I'll show you this in particular as the current version of Premise is limited to changes in power generation and also fuels for the consequential database. So for the SSP5 scenario, approximately half of the energy mix in 2050 consists of fossil fuels, including gas and oil. And for the SSP2 scenario, we almost exclusively use renewable sources, including on and offshore wind and centralized solar PV. So the graphs here show the climate change impact in kilograms CO2 equivalent for each scenario compared to the base case, which I have referred here to as state of the art. And the results show a significant reduction in the climate change impact for both SSP2 and DC scenarios, and a also a reduction in climate change for the SSP5 based 2050 scenario, but this is less significant than the others. Yeah, it's also observed that the significant reduction in the climate change impact is mostly influenced by the use phase here, and that's not a surprise because the energy use here in the form of electricity, and it's a major contributor to climate change impact when it comes to the use phase. All right, next slide, please. So I've not touched upon the dynamic global warming potential and uncertainty, but the dynamic global warming potential includes time dependency in the calculation of climate change impact scores. It takes in consideration the timely release of greenhouse gas emissions. So considering time separation between capture and the release of carbon embedded in products. This is also this framework provides a tiered approach, and you can find it in the repository. And the framework for uncertainty also provides a tiered approach for defining uncertainty for input data and also the propagation of uncertainty. It includes a framework for sensitivity as well. And this is actually especially useful as a Monte Carlo simulation is not supported by CIMA Pro software when you're using a consequential LCA. For an attribution LCA, this is of course possible, but not for a consequential LCA. Next slide, please. So the learnings from applying the aligned framework. So I found that most of the aligned methodologies and corresponding tutorials were well structured and also relatively easy to implement because of its tiered structure. But the methodology for dynamic LCA, not really mentioned a lot here, but was difficult to follow. And well, we will provide some feedback to the developer. Also, the application of the foreground LCI framework really takes into consideration the effects of biomass competition. Is therefore a more accurate assessment. However, we found that there's a lack of data regarding organic cotton production and also a lack of eco-event background databases covering more geographical regions. The results also from the prospective LCA then were as expected, considering the model scenarios that were chosen. It provides a consistent way of investigating the environmental performance in the near future, but we also have found that the number of parameters that can be changed for consequential model are minimal. There's only the electricity generation and fuels. And we encountered actually a lot of practical issues, amongst others that the downloading of the eco-event database was only possible when you have a continuous license and not a yearly license. So there was one problem. We had some problems with importing the background database into CIMA Pro, with a lot of import errors. We had to troubleshoot there. But this is all something we have to give feedback to the developer. Yeah, questions?
I can see one questions in the Q&A. That's from Diego Penalosa. And he asked, what is the recycling method for the recycled PET fibers?
That is mechanical. It's mechanical separation. It is mechanically done.
Okay. If people have more questions, maybe they can raise their hands.
There's
Otherwise-
also one in the chat by Leslie Garcia, and she said that, can this case be considered as a textile mechanical recycling case?
Where is this question?
On the chat, not on the Q&A.
Yes, this can be considered as textile mechanical recycling case, yes.
Okay. Then if there are no extra questions, we will continue to the next part, which will be the interactive discussion. Yeah, we've talked a lot now in the presentations, And now we hope to get some input from your side. So if you want, you can join the poll. You can either scan the QR code or go to ahaslides.com/textiles2. To show you a video on how to enter this. Can you see the screen with the video and the QR code? Okay. And you can use the online, you go to ahaslides.com and then you do textiles 2. Okay, so now we can start with some trial questions. You can always scan the QR code here in the page.
Rachel, your sound was a bit off, so maybe you
Yeah?
can repeat the last sentence, please.
My sound was freezed. Can you hear now?
It's still a bit freezed.
Okay.
We have also shared the link on the chat. If anyone doesn't have a phone or can access the QR code.
Okay.
I think you need to reload. Yeah, this is the first question, I think. In which country are you located?
Yes.
I don't get it on my phone yet, but the second question: do you want to dare up your microphone? It's it's a little bit of a
Yeah, it's a bit chaotic.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so actually we can start with the first question. I hope it's all showing up on your screen.
Yeah.
You can see now that 16 people have entered. And we currently have 1 vote. So I will wait a little bit. I hope the connection is reestablished again. So we can currently see there are 4 people from research, 1 person who's joining from consultancy. And I think we should give this just a minute. It's just to see what group we are talking to today.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to give an idea about what we want to do here, we have done a consultation. Yeah, that means that via the internet, people were able to give some ideas and some questions on the online survey. And we will repeat some of those questions, compare them to the online survey, and check what you think. And the overall goal is to gather some feedback on the things that we presented and the things that we want to include in our recommendations. So that's the idea. If you did the survey online already, thank you. We're very happy about that. Please do that as well here if you want. It's, of course, if you don't want to, you can also not do it. But what we would like to have is a discussion on the answers. In a survey, it is one way. People fill it in, and we have no idea why people fill certain things in. And we hope now that we can have some idea why people are answering the way they answer. So that's the background of it. So I'm sorry if you have to do things twice. It's for the good of the whole. We have a lot of researches, I see. And
Yes.
what was it by the survey, Rachel? Can you go on?
For the introduction questions, we only focus on who is here today. When we go, like, we follow the same structure as we did for the survey. So after we finish these trial questions, we will go first more into detail of 3 general questions, and then we will go deeper into like the aligned methodologies. I can see currently 12 people are in the AHA slides. And it's nice to see we have people from all over the places. The Netherlands, Finland, Belgium. Then I think we will continue to the first question. And the first question regarding the more general life cycle assessments are, what are, in your opinion, current barriers to perform an environmental impact assessment like an LCA? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
as
seeing
you
it on my phone, so that works. That's good.
And feel free, if one of the options is not listed that you are experiencing as a barrier, you can raise your hand and we will give you the ability to speak. And if you are thinking about it, I show you the results in the survey. All the responses with 5. Data availability is a current barrier.
Yeah, it's the same again as that was what was the case with the in the survey. Data availability is a serious problem. I think we saw that already also with the case study of Dr. Green that Bas Davides showed. It was not possible to get all the market data that he wanted. So yeah, apparently this is quite a serious data availability is in general a serious problem. Yeah.
Okay. Then we continue with the second questions, which is, which guidelines do you use for the environmental impact assessment that you are performing? So I will open the second question.
And you can also put in more guidelines. If you use more methods, you can all put them in. It's just we would like to have a general idea.
Yes, okay, we see the PEF is very popular.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to elaborate, please raise a hand. Okay. And we also have some people who say other. So I'm also interested to see.
I'm reading PCR for apparel in the EDP, the Environmental Product Declarations. Okay, that's already there. I thought that the PEFCR for apparel and textiles was under development, but apparently still people already are using it, which, oh, well, that sounds like quite some uptake. That's interesting. Yeah? Good.
Okay.
And of course, the standard ISO, I see nobody uses Higgs. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And these were the results from the consultation. Also here we see that the PEF is scored the highest, and that ISO is very popular.
Yeah.
And then the third question, where do you find your resources on how to perform an LCA? I will open the question. Maybe while people are voting, we can go over the results of the consultation. So here we can see that most people actually find their research.
Yeah, mostly in the scientific papers and also the guidelines I saw. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody uses the social media. And I thought also nowadays that I think you can find quite some good information on social media on this. Yeah, of course, you have to check your information because to make sure that it is not the wrong one. But apparently nobody else is doing that. Huh?
Okay. Then I think we can go to the fourth question. So we've talked about the consequential LCA methodology. And the question is, how much do you look forward to this actually being implemented? Is this something you would like to see when you perform an LCA?
Yeah, and the background here is, of course, that many LCS can be attributional or consequential. And yeah, we think in Aligned, we like to promote the use of the consequential LCA. That's an LCA which also takes into account the change in the wider world of your project by determining a marginal mix, which was done by Bas. We think that this is in general a good methodology to use for things where you have like constrained resources, as such as industrial bio-based sectors. So we think it's good, and apparently quite some people also think it's okay. Was it
Yes.
also from the survey?
Now in the survey, the opinions were a little bit more distributed. So some people were waiting for it, some people not so much. So from the survey, it looked like people were not sure if they were actually wanting to use consequential LCA.
Well, yeah, I would say it's about half are 4 or 5. So they say, well, yes, we are okay with it. We are fairly positive.
And then when we go more into detail of this consequential LCA, what problems do you see in conducting a consequential LCA? Well, of course, a lot of the voters today were highly anticipating it. So let's see if they also know some barriers. Yes, we can already see this lack of market data, which, as we established also in the first question, that in general the data availability is very important. It's nice to see so many people answer so quickly. And in the consultation, we found also that the lack of market data was something that was voted highly, also lack of training or expertise, and incompatibility with existing standards. So yeah, if somebody wants to explain, maybe the person who was voting other, it's also very interesting to hear really why you would like to do a consequential LCA or why it would be a problem.
Yeah, if you want to talk or want to say something, just raise your hand and we can give you speaking rights. Yeah, you can of course use the chat or yeah, you don't have to speak, of course.
Yes.
There are two questions on the chat. Like, which social media channels do you recommend to explore? On the last question, I think YouTube was an example.
Yes.
Yeah, LCA list and yeah, EcoInvent has some nice YouTube channels, of course, and there are several others. It's actually it's a lot of information can be found if with very little search effort.
And also one of our participants, Antonio Martins, said that there are also LinkedIn groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
So if someone wants to speak, they can either write on the chat that they want to speak, and we will give them the option to do that.
Then I think we continue to the next question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is it should be. We note that this is quite some good information. The lack of market data is really you need it for the consequential LCA, and it is a problem. We saw it ourselves. We see it now, and we see it in the feedback here and in the survey. So that's really an issue. And not to say that expertise and costs and incompatibility is an issue, but the data availability shows to be a serious. Yeah, you can't do it. You can't help it yourself, of course. Yeah? If there's no data, you still have the problem. Yeah. So we take that along. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then if we want to have more market data, which actors do you think should be encouraged to increase the sharing of market data, especially for new textile materials? I can also see in the chat that Antonio made a comment about the digital product passport.
Yeah.
Can the tools digital product passports? An interesting question.
Typically a situation where you have a regulatory group like the EU or member states. They help to facilitate the sharing of data. I think the tools developed in the framework of the Aligned project can be used better when digital product passwords are developed. I'm not sure if the tools help the digital product passwords, but I think it will be the other way around. The product passwords will help the Aligned. It will help to do this LCAs via the Aligned methods. And of course, yeah, it's still in development, these product passwords. So we really don't know exactly how they're going to look yet, if it is 2027. So yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, I think which actors should be encouraging the sharing of the market data. Yeah, the sector. Everybody thinks that the sector needs to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, also we saw this in the consultation that the sector was highly voted on.
Yeah. The point is, if sometimes sharing of accurate market data, it runs counter to the commercial or business interests of the sector. And it's I once tried to map supply chains for biorefineries, and then you see that as soon as you are delving into situations where commercial interests are important, then you won't get anywhere. That trumps everything. So I sympathize with the idea, but it is difficult. Huh? Interesting. Yeah. Anybody else want to have some comment via the chat or ways to get more market data? Anybody, any ideas? Okay. Yeah. We apparently we have to think hard, all of us, on how to encourage this, because it is a barrier towards the use of the consequential LCA. Yeah, nice. Can we go on?
Yes. Then the next question is not focusing on consequential methodology, but more on the prospective LCA methodology.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the prospective LCA, that is when you try to account for what will happen in the future with, for example, the energy generation. What Bas explained with the Python scripts, which you normally do not have to use if you do it in tier 1. Okay. Many people look forward to it.
And while people are voting, we can look at the results of the consultation.
Similar, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's prospective LCA is considered to be interesting in the sector because textile sector, it's understandable because the use phase is important. Yeah, it should be noted what Bas already mentioned. We, in our methodologies and in our tutorials, we had ourselves some practical issues. We are very much trying to give feedback to those that develop these tutorials and the work so that we can smooth that out as much as possible so that it also becomes easier to use. In theory, it is not that difficult changing one background database. In practice, we had some problems, but we hope that that can be smoothed out. And we have some good hope that it can be made better. Anybody want to have some comment on this?
Yeah, we can use also the next question for that because we will go into what potential barriers could be when conducting the prospective LCA. So maybe this can kickstart a conversation. Okay. Yes, and also during the consultation, we could see that people saw the lack of prospective LCA database availability as a potential. Also, it could be give him more difficulties to compare prospective LCA results with other LCA results.
Well, that's, I think, a logical point indeed. Yeah. And the lack of, yeah, we could work on 1 and 3 by improving our tutorials and the information available for the prospective LCA. We can help a bit with the lack of training expertise. And of course, the lack of prospective LCA databases. We should work on it, or we can recommend that it gets worked on how to compare prospective LCA results to other LCA results. Yeah, well, it will be different because, of course, we expect that the background data will change, and then the results will change. And it's, I'm not sure of if Bas said this explicitly, but there was it was visible that what the impact was of the background LCA data change. So yes. Interesting. Is anybody care to comment on this? Okay. Well, no. Yeah. Let's go on. We thought we
Yes.
had difficulty going through all the questions, but it is easier than we thought in that respect.
Okay. So for using the prospective LCA, it's needed to have an accurate background data, and therefore we have similar question: who could be encouraged to actually share this background data?
Yeah. So the first question was a few questions ago. We talked about foreground data. Now we talk about the background data, general data on the sustainability of energy, materials, etc., etc.
We can see that consultation voters again voted highly on the textile sector, but actually a variety of different actors were chosen. Let's see in the consultation today. Yeah.
Yeah. Remarkable that nobody selects the EU member states, because they are in a position to encourage regulation which encourages to share the accurate background data, I would say. But as I said, I'm not voting at this moment. So yeah. Anybody care to say something about this? Maybe on their own answer, or more in general?
Because this, after this, we will have a final question, which will be about the different methodologies, part of what we showed today. And you can only vote one of the methodologies, and we are really interested to see what you are most excited to see implemented. So you can vote for the consequential LCA.
So this is not about your own activity,
That the focus
but more on,
is,
yeah, it's more on what you think is a good way, what should happen in the textile sector, or what is a good method which should generally be employed in the textile sector to more accurately determine the environmental sustainability. Yeah. Yeah, mostly prospective LCA. That's
Yeah, it's scoring very
Yeah,
good.
it is, in a sense, I think that's logical. The dynamic carbon accounting is simply less of an issue in the textile sector. Uncertainty analysis, yeah, okay, it can be good. Some people say, well, let's do that. But prospective LCA is a really good thing. Yeah.
And this was also, we could see from the consultation form that prospective LCA scored high, but even higher was the dynamic carbon accounting.
Yeah, I thought that a little bit strange because yeah, I see less the use of that method here in the textile sector, but yeah, apparently everybody agrees with me on that. Is anybody wants to say something about this? What methods should be best? Should be used?
Yes, I think it's interesting to see that nobody votes on dynamic carbon accounting. I think it's becoming more interesting when you are modeling your textile case study in such a way that it reflects a closed loop recycling. So then, if you continuously recycle your textiles, then and you get disposed of it later after some loops, then if you dispose it to landfill, then of course it will decompose later into carbon dioxide and methane, and then it comes free. So then I think it will be very interesting to see the results of the dynamic carbon accounting, but not for open loop recycling, I would say.
Yeah, and you mean that when you have a lot of recycling, then the carbon stays in the is not released to the atmosphere again for a long time.
Exactly.
Reason. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Then I was wondering if people have any questions or remarks, because otherwise we will finally make a word cloud with, for example, from all the aligned methodologies that we talked about today, what barriers do you foresee? So I will give some time for this so people can write out. Multiple answers are allowed. So don't worry if you can only think of one now and later want to add some words.
And Rachel, you mean here that it's more the barriers for implementing all methodologies or more general barriers?
Yeah, and also to just discuss like what is maybe new today, what do you already know is happening a lot, what do you hear about a lot, and what do you think fits your company or maybe still would be a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see a lack of availability, data uncertainty, which is all very interesting to see.
Yeah. Incompatibility with the PEF, that's of course important issue. Data gaps, data availability, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Rachel, can you show me what the survey people said? Show us,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, so we got some replies. It's consequential LCAs may be easier to tamper with for a practitioner with an agenda.
Mhm.
Some people say all methods are relevant. It's a carbon accounting can accelerate circularity. And maybe also hear that different LCAs can focus on different methodology. Communication between brand and a consumer again, maybe use a different methodology than if you use it in research and development.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then
and
I
from
think
this word cloud, what you loudly hear again is the data availability. That's really the point that we have to take in. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And then for the last question, we were curious what topic in the workshop sparked your biggest interest. So what is
And
something that
Rachel,
makes...
what do you mean with topic? Do you mean what the case study, the methodology, or do you mean
Yeah, what did you learn? What did you find most interesting? It could be about
Okay, so it's a very broad question in the sense that,
what
yeah.
we see some participants are typing.
Okay. Okay, interesting, the interactive part. Yeah. Yeah, well, we very much like to have a two-way communication on this because the sending away the information is nice, but if it doesn't land with people who are working on this, then yeah, we have no idea if it's good and if it's workable. So that's what we try to do. Great that the open access methodology. Again, if you are going to try to use this, you are very welcome to give feedback. We in the slides it is made quite easy. It's shown where you can do it, and we have made it quite easy. We appreciate it, and we will try to do something with it so that we can improve the methodology and the usability. Okay, the new perspectives, the lessons learned. Oh wow, it's very nice, very nice. Yeah, yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I can also see in the chat somebody asked a question: how different rotation time of feedstocks?
Yeah, I just answered it via the chat.
Okay. Yeah, so how this affects the LCA results of textile products using a dynamic approach.
Yeah,
I think,
in short, the longer the rotation is, of course, the longer the carbon is stored or captured, and also the longer it takes that the carbon is released. So that has a significant effect on the dynamic approach.
And we see that much work needs to be done. Yeah, that's I think very, very true. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
okay, then I also think due to the time, maybe we should, if somebody wants to say anything more, you're feel welcome to wrap up. Okay. Then following
very
from
good.
this
Yeah, we what we will do, we will share the proceedings with you from the consultation which we did earlier and the workshop, so that you can have it. We will update our recommendations based on this information what we get. We will, as you mentioned, we want to recommend these new methods to be used, and we will update them with information such as things like we should do something about the data availability in various ways. Next slide. Can you do that, Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a stakeholder network. This workshop is part of a series of 5. Can you go back one slide, please? Yeah, this stakeholder network, if you are interested in what we do in the other sectors, the woodworking, the chemical, construction, chemical, and pulp and paper. If you join our stakeholder networks, you get the invites. You're not going to be spammed, but you get the invites for the other workshops, other consultations. So join it. It should be relatively easy, and you are informed and don't have to watch out yourself for when it happens. So that can happen. And there's one other event, and then please go to the last slide, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if you are interested in policy, so in what policies need to be made to improve the assessment of environmental performance of bio-based products, we have, together with our sister project, that is also an EU project, Calimero, we have on the 4th of June, we have a workshop in Brussels. It's a hybrid event. We have place for people to go live, to come live to this workshop in the morning, is it? And you can visit it also via internet. So that is if you're interested into the policy aspects. For non-policy, it's simply if you are primarily interested methodologically, it's maybe less interesting. But if you're interested into the policies, this is the workshop for you. And I think this was the last slide. Is that correct, Rachel?
Yes. In the next slide, we
The last
just
slide.
thank
Indeed.
everybody for coming. They can stay connected, and we hope you enjoyed this workshop.
Yeah, thank you all, indeed. Your opinion and your feedback is very valuable, and we hope you gain something from it. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you in other events of Aligned. So thank you.
Yes.